Welcome to the book of Hebrews. Now, I bet you want to know who wrote it. I don't know. It's not Paul. It can't be Timothy or one of the apostles. Luke's out because he's a Gentile. That leaves Apollos or Barnabas, but more likely it's written by someone who's unknown and unnamed in the New Testament. Now, I wish I could tell you who it was written to, but I don't know that either. You see, the letter of Hebrews breaks all the rules because it's a letter, but not really. You see, letters start like one of the ones of Paul. Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to the church that is in Corinth. But Hebrews doesn't start that way. It dives right in from the first verse. So what do we know? Well, the title that we've received for this book, to the Hebrews, was given to it by a guy named Tertullian in the 3rd century. So it's not original to the book itself, but all of church history has assumed that this letter was written to a Jewish audience, and for good reason. And this Jewish audience probably lived in a major urban center, most likely Rome, because in the closing greeting here in chapter 13, the author is going to say, those who come from Italy, that is Rome, send you greetings. So they're probably in Rome. And these were formerly practicing Jews. They heard the gospel from the apostles, and they were converted. So that's their story. But more importantly, the more important question, why was this letter written? What was the occasion which prompted the writing of the letter to the Hebrews? Well, these Jews, they were on fire. They were Messianic Jews, and they were on fire for their faith. Chapter 10 tells us that they joyfully accepted the plundering of their property, persecution for the faith. But since then, time has passed, time has gone by, they're getting tired, and they're stalling out in their faith. Let me show you in one exhortation from chapter 6. So here in chapter 6, the preacher, that's what we're going to call him, he says that I desire that you show the same earnestness that you used to have, and do not be sluggish. But there are some within the congregation, it seems, who are in greater danger than just sluggishness or being lukewarm. You see, some members in the church, in this congregation of Messianic Jews in Rome, they had had enough. As Jews, they had special protection from Rome. They could practice their faith without harassment, but as Christians, they had no such luck. I mean, they were probably thinking, oh, come on, we serve the same God, don't we? Let's just forget this whole Jesus thing and go back to the synagogue across the street. But the author of Hebrews, he calls it what it is. This is apostasy. It is falling away from the faith. Let me show you a couple of instances where he points out the danger that they're in. Falling away from the faith. Let's start in chapter 2. We must pay much closer attention lest we drift away from the faith. Now down in chapter 3, verse 12. Take care, brothers, lest there is in you an evil, unbelieving heart leading you to fall away from the living God. 4:1. While the promise of entering rest still stands, let us fear lest any of us should have failed to reach it. 6:6. And have fallen away. It is impossible to restore them, since in falling away they are crucifying once again the Son of God and holding him up to contempt. This is some serious business here. In chapter 10, he's going to say that this is nothing short of trampling underfoot the Son of God, profaning the blood of the covenant, outraging the Spirit of grace. I mean, this is serious. So what's he going to do? What's the author of Hebrews going to do? This congregation of Messianic Jews in Rome, they need some serious preaching. They need one powerful sermon. But the author, he's not in their presence. He can't preach that sermon. So he does the next best thing. He writes out a sermon and he sends it off as a letter. That's why we don't have a formal letter opening at the beginning. And it's also why at the end in chapter 13, he calls this 13-chapter sermon a brief word of exhortation. Now, if you were going to preach to a group of Messianic Jews who were considering abandoning their faith and returning to Judaism, what would you say? Well, the author of Hebrews, the preacher, his message is that Jesus is better. Jesus is better than Moses. He is better than the words spoken to Moses at Sinai. Jesus is a better priest than the old covenant. He serves in a better tabernacle. He offers a better sacrifice. He mediates a better covenant in 8 through 10. You see, the old covenant, it was a shadow, but the real thing, the substance in Jesus has arrived. Therefore, the preacher says, do not return to the shadow. That's his message. But there are two parts to his message. You see, if these Messianic Jews remain faithful to their Messiah, they have everything to gain in following Jesus. But if they turn their back on him and fall away, they have everything to lose. You see, unlike Paul, who in his letters, oftentimes the first half of the letter is all theology and the second half of the letter is all exhortation, the preacher of the letter of Hebrews, he goes back and forth all the time. Exposition, exhortation, exposition, exhortation, back and forth, back and forth. And in each of these major sections, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 to 7, 8 and 10, the exposition portion of these sections is going to center around a single Old Testament passage. Psalm 8, Psalm 95, Psalm 110, Jeremiah 31, Proverbs 3, Habakkuk 2, Exodus 19. It's going to center around a single Old Testament passage. But in each one of these sections, there is also a severe warning that they do not fall away. If they do, they have everything to lose. And therefore, again and again and again, throughout this sermon, this sermonic letter, the preacher is going to say, hold fast, hold fast, hold fast. Let's look at a couple of those moments. The central message of the letter of Hebrews. Start in 3:6. Hold fast to our confidence. Down in chapter 14, hold to our original confidence when we were first brought to know Jesus. 4:14, let us hold fast to our confession. Don't let go of our confession of faith. 6:18, let us have strong encouragement to hold fast to the hope set before us. And finally, down in 10:23, let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. Now, we are going to take a closer look at that confession and why these Messianic Jews should place their unwavering confidence in that confession next.